Hi everybody, welcome to another episode of Best of British Blackwell. Today, something really special. We're going to be making Boulangere potatoes with a haunch of venison. Venison's one of my favourite meats and it's kind of really underrated in terms of the flexibility of what you can do with it. So come over, have a look at the ingredients, let's make a start. Okay, so what are our key ingredients in this dish? Well, firstly, obviously, this piece of venison. Now you can see it's quite a small piece. There's only two of us eating this tonight, so I didn't need a massive piece. These haunches of venison you can get actually really quite big, so if you did want to feed quite a few people, you could. But look at that, nice, rich, dark meat there. We'll get onto that a little bit later, but what we're going to start off with is our Boulangere potatoes. Now, as I start cooking this, I'll give you a little bit of a description, more of a description as to what we're doing and why. But the two key ingredients are some onions. I've got 5 medium size onions in there, medium to small size, and I've got, you know, a dozen or so small to medium potatoes that have been peeled. First things first, what we want to do is slice these onions down. I'm going to slice them quite thin. So the way I do that is straight through the middle. And look, that's how thin I'm doing them. So our onions have all now been sliced up into these kind of thin strips. What I'm going to do is just add them to a pan. As you can hear, this pan isn't that hot yet. I've got it on about medium heat. What I want to do with these is sweat these down. I'm not looking to fry them. I'm not looking to get much in the way of colour on them. I'm just going to season them with some pepper and some salt for now. I'm going to stick the lid on this pan while it gets to temperature. And I'm just going to let these start to soften a little bit. We'll come back to these pretty much as soon as they're done, okay? Whilst we're waiting for our onions to soften, what we're going to do is get these potatoes and pass them through our mandolin. You can use whichever device you want really to slice these down, just as long as you end up with a potato which is about that thick. Hopefully you can see that. So for my mandolin, it's actually on the middle setting. Now the key for this is that we're not looking to get rid of any of the starch from these potatoes. You'll see that when I peeled them, I put them into some cold water, but now I'm slicing them, I'm just putting them straight into the bowl. The reason is that this dish relies quite heavily on the starch that's in the potatoes. Later on to this dish, we're going to add some stock, and we want the stock to have a little bit of a chemical reaction with the starch in these potatoes to create quite a nice thick liquid. So, okay, so my potatoes are done, and what you will see is that the smaller potatoes I've run through the mandolin and put into one bowl, and the slightly larger potatoes I've put into another. I'll show you why I do that a little bit later, but it's a presentation thing, so it's just worth keeping in mind. Beautiful. So our onions are looking really good. Just going to take this opportunity to make sure that it's all nicely separated. Still see a lot of seasoning in there. They're not quite at the stage where I want them to be at the moment, so they're going to stay on for a little bit longer. But at this stage, I'm going to add a little sprinkling of thyme. I'm using the dried variety, you can use fresh, not a problem at all. And I'm also going to take this opportunity to top up on the seasoning. Okay, so venison. To be honest with you, it's a really, really nice meat, and it's not a meat that you see too often actually, or actually, I mean, you do see it, and it's becoming a little bit more commonplace, but I think people are a little bit scared to try it, and it's always got this bit of a reputation for being a bit posh, if you like. It certainly has come down in price in recent years compared to, you know, when people, you know, I think when people first started cooking it on TV and stuff like that. And it's got this reputation as a cut of meat that maybe only kind of TV chefs and fine dining restaurants do. But actually, you know, it's a wonderful piece of meat. It's really nice and lean. I mean, look at that, not very fatty at all. And you'll see a little bit later when we cook this off properly that, you know, it's very versatile. In terms of what it's similar to, well, I tend to cook it very similar to cooking a piece of beef. What you will find when you see this cooked on TV and on MasterChef and all these chefy TV programs, they will do it very rare. I'm not so keen on it rare. I think it's got too much of a pungent taste when it's rare. I cook mine medium. To help me do that, I'm going to be using my meter device here, which links to my phone. You've probably seen me use it before. I will insert this probe into the meat just after I've browned it, and it will tell me when it's perfectly medium in the middle, which is very, very helpful. But as you can see there, all I've done to prepare this really is I've given it a really good coating of seasoning, and then the next thing we're going to do with this is brown it off in a pan. So my onions are off the heat now. As you can see, they've softened beautifully. They're not cooked through, they've not taken on any colour. That's just exactly how we want them. So all we need to do now is set these aside to cool, and then we'll prepare to start putting this Boulangere potato together. Okay, to start the Boulangere potatoes, all we do is we get a nice deep roasting dish. You can go much bigger if you want to, or you can go smaller, completely up to you. We get some potatoes and we start to build up layers of potatoes and onions throughout the dish. So just cover the bottom of the pan. This doesn't need to be pretty, you just need to make sure it's well covered. Nice layer of potato. Hopefully you can see that. Maybe just another one here. Nice decent layer of potato on the bottom of the baking dish there. Then we come back over here to our onions. Doesn't really matter that they're still warm. And what we're going to do is get some onions on here. Beautiful. Nice layer of onions. And then we go back in for some more potatoes. And I'm going to keep repeating this until all of these ingredients are gone. Nice layer of potatoes. I'll show you the first couple of layers. Make sure everything's covered. Doesn't need to be that pretty. Once you finish the first layer, straight in with some more seasoning. You're not going to be able to over season this. We know that potatoes are quite bland. We know that onions are going to give us some flavour, but you do need to season this. Straight in with some more onions. Here we go. So here's our Boulangere potatoes all layered up. You can see I've been a little bit more careful with the top layer of potatoes there, just for presentation purposes. Liberal seasoning all around. We're going to cook this dish in two parts. It's going to have an hour on 175 degrees, so relatively slow and low, just to finish off cooking these potatoes and onions. Then it's going to have another hour on about 220 degrees to crisp this top. In between that, I'm going to take this out of the oven and I'm going to add some butter to the top to make sure that those potatoes go a lovely golden brown. Just before we get it in the oven, beef stock. So you'll remember earlier I was talking about putting a lump of meat on here. We're not doing that today. So what I'm going to do very slowly is add some beef stock to this dish. Now, nice and slow, as you can see, because I don't want it all kind of falling over the sides. But what we do want to do is get this beef stock in here, and now hopefully you can see around the sides here, it's just starting to sink in to the side of this dish. This is going to make this extra special, and it's going to, the moisture is going to help cook these potatoes off. So just add this beef stock nice and slowly, and you stop with the beef stock when you can see it just coming up to the edges of the dish here. Now we're going to brown off this haunch of venison. And what I'm going to do is get it into the pan end first. This pan's nice and hot, And what I'm going to do is just seal this meat off all the way around. We're going to add a little bit of colour, not too much though. Not going to burn this at all. We're just going to seal it either end. Already been seasoned. There's no oil in this pan either, we don't need that. Once I've sealed either end and the bottom, I'll finish it off by sealing this bit of skin on the top here. Okay, so we're at the point now where this piece of venison has been pretty much sealed all over. I'm not looking to put any more colour on it than that. Let me show you how I set it up to get the meter probe in here. Okay, so the meter probe, like I said, I've probably showed you this before, forgive me if I have. It's a wonderful little device. It connects to your phone. The moment it comes out of that little holder, you can set up your cook. Tap the centre. All we're looking for is other meat. So we've got some venison here. We've got the venison roast. We're looking to get it done medium, which is at 63 degrees. So what I do is I turn the venison haunch up to the side, put the meter straight in there, give my hands a quick wipe, click the button that says start cook. This will automatically take an internal temperature reading, an ambient reading of inside the oven once it goes in there, and a target reading which is 63 degrees, and it will let me know when it's done. Perfect little device. Perfect for helping you cook these bits of meat which you've maybe never cooked before and you're a little bit nervous about cooking. So, you know, well worth the investment actually. I'm quite pleased with this. And here we go. Okay, these potatoes have had about an hour at 175, like I told you. And what we're going to do now is get some melted butter and just paste this on over the top of these potatoes that are on the top. You can see they've already started to crisp up, but they're not quite done yet. So what we're going to do now, once I finish coating these with a nice coating, beautiful butter, is get them back in the oven to finish off. Okay, so after 2 hours, this is the finished product, Boulangere potatoes. Just before we get to the point of serving, remember we've still got some of this butter left over. What I'm going to do is tip it over the top of these potatoes. Make sure they're completely covered. Look at that. Okay, so let's have a look at this piece of venison. It took about 45 minutes to cook. I used a meter probe, got it up to about 63 degrees, and then it rested for about 10 minutes. As you can see, it behaves a lot like beef. You can see there's a bit of shrinkage there, but actually, as a meal for two, that's perfect. This piece of venison here cost about £7, so it's not the cheapest meat in the world, but actually you'd pay a similar amount for a decent bit of beef, and it is just a really lovely texture. Let's start cutting into it a little bit. I will turn it around so you can see it. And as you can see there, look, beautiful bit of moisture still in that meat. It's just over medium, just over, which is fine. Still very juicy, still very tender. And it's actually just a perfect piece of meat for roasting, can't help it. As you can see, very moist, beautiful. Okay, so here we go. We've got that beautiful medium venison. I've served this up with some tender stem broccoli, some green beans, and some balsamic roasted parsnips. Let's see how these potatoes go. There's going to be no tidy way of doing this. Just hear that crunch on there. Make sure, what I tend to do when serving these up is just put those crunchy bits to one side. Excuse me. Get straight in with those potatoes. Look at those. Nice portion of potatoes there. Go back in for those crunchy bits. Place those on top. How good does that look? So we have got haunch of venison with Boulangere potatoes and winter veg. Easy to make. Enjoy, everybody.